Hey, hockey fans. Welcome to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey for the week of January 28th through February 3rd. I am your host tonight, Trasher. The panel with me tonight is Bill Berg, Del Scanlon, and Bill Berg Jr. And we're going to start out tonight with what we call Championship Week, games of the week, and they're going to comprise the three conference championships that took place during the frigid last week, actually. And we'll start out by going to the boys Badgerland Conference Tournament, and with that I will hand it off to Bergler.
Thanks, Trasher, and that's a good place to start because it's the Badgerland Conference that started this. They've held their championship tournament at the end of the season. They play each other once during the season, which is used to seed the tournament, and then they have their tournament at the end. And we've been a big fan of that, and the Girls Eastern Conference joined on that. The Great Northern Conference joined on it this year for the boys, and we would like to see all conferences do something similar to this and make it championship week, throughout the state. But that's just our little soapbox. Right now, we'll get to the Badgerland Championship Tournament. Like I said, we've been covering this for as long as they've been holding it. Unfortunately, something came up Saturday, and I was not able to make it over there. But we got all the information. I think the first round was pretty much wiped out by school closings last week. And they just kind of went with the seed. They just kind of assumed the seeds fell as they were and just jumped in with the second round on Friday and the championship round on Saturday. Fox City Stars beat Fond du Lac 2-0. I think take third place. And Nina Hortonville Menasha rode a 4-goal second period to beat Fond du Lac St. Mary's Springs 4-3 in the championship. They also announced another great thing about this hosting the conference tournament is that they announced all their conference awards, the all-state or the all-conference teams. They announced those generally in between the third-place game and the championship game, where you've got, at least 4 teams worth of fans there, those who were at the third-place game and those who are coming for the championship game. So you've got fans there. You announce the players. They go out on the ice. It's a whole lot better than just, a press release, the week after the state tournament when everybody's done with hockey. And, here, by the way, here's our all-conference team. The Badgerland First Conference, Zach Welch of St. Mary's Springs, Dylan Fox of Nina Hortonville Menasha, and Max Erstedt of Fond du Lac are the 3 forwards on the first team. Defenseman Owen Engel of Nina Hortonville Menasha, Noah Blank of St. Mary's Springs, and Noah Pickert, a sophomore of St. Mary's Springs, are the 3 defensemen. And the top goalie in the all-conference for Badgerland Conference is Max Gutjar of the Fox City Stars. We'll have the whole list up there on the website as soon as I manage to get it posted. The Badgerland Conference Player of the Year was the aforementioned Max Gutjar, the Fox City's senior goaltender. Coach of the Year, Jeff Lindeman and Mike Elkin of Nina Hortonville Menasha. Badgerland, the regular season championship was Nina Hortonville Menasha. Also, the tournament championship, the sportsmanship award went to Oshkosh. Scholar Athlete, they also have Scholar Athlete Award. They had a whole bunch of them. Jack Moeller from Appleton, Walker Gazda from Appleton, Max Gutjar from Fox Cities, Trent Christoffel from Fox Cities, Aaron Nussbaum from Nina, Cody Diaz, Dylan Fox, Owen Engel, and Eric Alberts, all from Nina Hortonville Menasha, Mason Robertson from Oshkosh, Zachary Welch from St. Mary Springs, and Carter Flegner from Waupun were your Scholar Athlete Award winners in the Badgerland Conference. So it's a great event. Really wraps up the conference schedule. I know you hear a lot of people talking about that, the only thing that counts in the whole hockey season, is the playoffs and for the state tournament. Well, no, if you're in a conference, those games count, and you want to win your conference, and then to have a big event like this at the end of your conference season is just a great way to wrap up the conference. And congratulations to Nina Hortonville Menasha on winning the regular season championship and the tournament championship. And congratulations to all of the all conference members and the Scholar Athlete Award winners from the Badgerland Conference. And that's my story from there. And back to you, Trasher.
All right, thanks, Burglar. The Badgerland Conference, always very well represented in the state. They always seem to have 3 or 4 really solid teams in there. And we like the way that they do things down there. It's pretty much a first-class organization ran through there, and we definitely appreciate that. And I know what you mean about conference championships. When Emily, here I go again, my daughter was a freshman, her team tied for the conference championship for the first time, and I think the only time in the Red Panther history. And I mean, it's a big deal. So it's nice to have that banner flying in your arena, and it's a big deal. And we really like the way that these guys do that. So with that, we'll move on to the next conference tournament, which was the Eastern Shores Conference Tournament. And our buddy from Reedsburg, Baraboo area, Del Scanlon, will tell us a little bit about that. Del, what do you got for us?
Thanks, Treasure. Well, on Saturday evening, I ended up having to send a text to Coach Wojcik and asked him to explain to Jeff Fox and both teams why I wasn't going to be able to be at the game in person on Saturday evening due to the weather last week. Our company ended up having to work Saturday, and I didn't get home till almost 6 o'clock Saturday evening from work. So a little hard to make it up to Nina in time for a 6:30 game. But this was the Eastern Shores Conference Tournament. And like Burglar with the Badgerland, Eastern Shores also announced their first team and second team honorable mention players prior to the third place game, and then went on to name their Scholar Athlete Awards, which we will post all of that up on the website here in the next day or so. But the Sportsmanship Award this year went to Arrowhead Co-op. The conference championship actually came down to being the number 1 team against the number 2 team in the state in our rankings last week, as it was the Fox City Stars taking on the Alliance, which is the Warbirds Beaver Dam Co-op. And to get there, Fox City Stars beat USM 4-2 in their game, while the Alliance slipped by the Union 2-1, and they went on to make it to the championship game on Saturday evening. This game went to the third period, and it was a shorthanded goal with 3 minutes and 33 seconds, or 3 minutes 3 seconds remaining in the game, as Morgan Brown for the Alliance scored a shorthanded goal to give the Alliance a 1-0 win and the conference title on Saturday evening. And with that, I'm going to toss it back to you, Trasher.
All right. Thanks, Del. I had to try to find my unmute button on the Skype here. We have some other games. I'm going to pass it along to Bill Jr., and he's going to tell us a little bit about the Great Northern Conference Tournament. Bill, what do you got for us?
Well, other than these other 2 jokers, I managed to keep my commitments and actually make it to Antigo to see the last 2 games of the Great Northern Conference Tournament. It was actually a great tournament all around. Everybody seemed pretty happy with the way it played out. There was one upset, if you want to call it that, in the tournament. 7th-seeded Lakeland ended up getting the 5th place spot in the tournament by beating 5th-seeded Tomahawk and 6th-seeded Mosinee. in the consolation bracket to win the fifth spot in the tournament. So good for Lakeland. Their goalie had a couple of pretty good games there as they were outshot mightily by Tomahawk. And like the other two, between the third place game and the championship game, they did announce the Great Northern Conference all-conference teams with all their fans and parents and everybody in attendance. No boring press release at the end of the season, especially those conferences that wait till like after the state tournament is over. That's just wrong. All three games that final Saturday were actually, well, the first three games that final Saturday were actually really good games. In the opener, Medford and Mosinee were actually tied at 3 after 2 periods before Max Bestie knocked in the game winner with just 2 minutes left in the game for Mosinee to give them the 7th place finish. Tomahawk and Lakeland were tied at 2 goals going into the third period before Keegan McJoint knocked in Lakeland's goal early in the third to give them the 3-2 win over Tomahawk. Anago and Rhinelander were in a 2-1 game going into the third period, and then Rhinelander got a 5-minute head contact penalty, and Anago ended up scoring 3 goals on the major power play to make it a 5-1, and that was an upset win technically. Anago was the 4 seed, Rhinelander was the 3. And then the championship game, Northland Pines and Wapaka, they were a game of the week a couple weeks ago. It was 11-2 that time. It was 9-2 this time. Once again, Wapaka kept it close through the first period. It was just 1-0 Pines, but the shots were 18-2, and when the ice is tilted that far, eventually you run out of steam, and Northland Pines kind of ran away with it, taking the Great Northern Conference Championship. They announced the GNC All-Conference team. I'll do the first team here. Goalie Brett Wilkins for Northland Pines. The 3 forwards are Jack Rohde from Northland Pines, Jack Menzies from Wapaka, and Abe Lagus from Rhinelander. Defense are Tucker Whitkopf from Northland Pines and Max Bembinster from Tomahawk, who is also the Conference Player of the Year, and the Conference Coach of the Year was David Cox of Northland Pines.
All right, Junior, I'm sorry. I was doing something else. So, guys, we have, I think if I counted right, 17 conferences between the boys and the girls teams in the state. What would you tell the coaches as to why a conference tournament at the end of the year would be a good thing versus what they're doing right now?
Good reasons. First, I think playing a tournament always ups the stakes for what you're doing, and playing it right at the end of the season just gets you in the right mindset going into the playoffs. Second, you get 4 games back on your schedule if you're an 8-team conference. You go from playing all the teams in your conference twice to dropping off that second set of 7 games and just playing 3 conference games in the tournament. Then you got 4 games left. You can use that for another in-season tournament. You can use that for traveling to other teams in your sectional. Or if you don't want to do the traveling, you can still play against teams in your conference again. It was canceled by weather, but Northland Pines and Mosinee were going to play a non-conference game in the Pines Classic. There's nothing stopping you from still playing those games, and that was one of the concerns that some teams in the Great Northern Conference had before they switched over from the traditional play each other twice to the play once and have a tournament format, is they didn't want to have to travel further for their games, and then eventually they were convinced, well, you don't actually have to. You can still play those other teams in your conference if you want to. It's just not a conference game. So, the meaningful playoff type hockey in a tournament, and you get 4 extra games on your schedule that you can do with as you please. Those are 2 big reasons to do it. If you're a classic 8-team conference, I hope everybody caught what I just said, there's no reason not to play a conference tournament at the end of the season.
And one more thing on there, the awards ceremony. For your all-conference team, your scholar athletes, whatever awards you give out, you do it when you have a fairly packed house. So the players all walk out on the ice. I mean, they're all there. I mean, it's not just players from those last 4 teams that are there. I mean, the ones who played earlier, they stick around for those award ceremonies, and that is a great thing also.
Burglar, I know we talked about like a lot of times strong conferences want to play multiple games in their conferences versus a conference that's maybe a little bit top heavy would rather free up some games to play against stronger teams. Do you think that is pretty much the way we can look at this? Do you think it benefits teams in both a strong conference and a weak conference?
I don't think that there are any strong conferences. I don't think there's a conference in the state where the bottom 3 teams are really a threat to like the top 2 or 3 teams in the conference. So in that way, playing each other once and then having a tournament, you can find 4 games to play against teams that are closer to your skill level. We say
and that works just as well at the bottom as it does at the top. The stronger teams like to play other stronger teams, and the teams at the bottom of the conference can play. Don't want to have to get beat up by those top teams all the time. And like he said earlier, just because it's not a conference game, you can still go back and play the other team in your conference a second time, just as a non-conference game.
Right, and that kind of avoids those 20 to nothing wins, right? When you have the top versus the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, Wausau West and Spash would beat the snot out of, Marshfield and Merrill and some other teams in the Wisconsin Valley Conference, a couple times a year, and there's no reason that's not good for either team. I mean, the winning team doesn't learn anything from it, neither does the losing team. Just as an example, the 3 and 4 seeds in the GNC are Anago and Rhinelander. If they couldn't fill out those extra 4 games, I'm sure Anago and Rhinelander would be more than happy to play against each other. They're not that far apart. It's an easy trip. They're evenly matched. I mean, there's no real downside to it. The way I look at it, it's all upside. And, we're this week on the podcast, we're calling it Championship Week, just like they do in college football when all the conference championships are played that one week. It's just a cool thing to have, and I think it'd be a benefit to everybody. Now, who knows what conferences are going to look like next year when there's 2 divisions? Are they going to keep multi-division conferences? I have no idea what's going to go on with that, but I'd like to see this continue and grow.
There you go, Trasher. So now why don't you keep with the Championship Week theme and give us some players of the week.
All right, I almost feel like, I can do that. All right, so we got the Championship Week players of the week, and on the boys' side, we'll start on the boys' side, and the winning player comes from the Great Northern Conference, who played in a tournament this weekend, and his name is Brett Wilkins. He's a junior goalie from Northern Pines. In a Friday game against Anago, he had a 15-save shutout in obviously the win. On Saturday, in a 9-2 win over Wapaka, he stopped 11 and let in 2. And on the year, he is the state leader in goals against average, 1.19, and he is also 8th in the state in save percentage with a .927 save percentage. So Brett Wilkins from Northern Pines is your boys' Championship Week player of the week. On the girls' side, Abby Okon, another goalie. She's a sophomore from the Warbirds Alliance. On Friday against Wisconsin Valley Union, she had 12 saves and allowed 1 in a win over the Union. The next day, she had a 21-save shutout in a win over the Fox City Stars. She is also the state leader in goals against with a 1.32 mark, and she is 4th in the state in save percentage at .933. So Abby Okon, your girls' player of the week. Brett Wilkins, your boys' player of the week. And championship theme, we like that, and I think, guys, maybe if people hear this, they'll think about it a little bit more and hopefully get into it and maybe thresh things up a little bit and make it happen. But for now, as it was the first Sunday in February, that means only one thing for state hockey fans, and that is sectional seeding. So we know how it all shook out. We know who got right, who got wronged. Let's have a little discussion about the sectional seeding, guys. What do you think about how it all worked out? Does it work? Did anybody get totally kind of shafted, I guess I could say? What do y'all think about it?
Well, on the boys' side, I certainly can't say if anybody got shafted. When the sectional seedings come out on the boys' side every year, I look at like 1 through 4, and then I stop. And that's coming from the guy who picked 6-seeded Bayport to go to the state tournament in 2017, and was right. I just want to point that out again. But I don't even look past the top 4, because at that point, there's so much going on in the 11-team boys brackets that it's hard to say who's really 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I always look at the top 3, and on the boys' side this year, the way a lot of these brackets broke out, it was kind of a no-brainer on who should be where. You know, looking at Section 3, West beat Pines and Spash, Pines beat Spash. Nobody else in the section will beat any of those 3 teams, so West, Pines, and Spash are 1, 2, 3. Most of the sections broke down that way. The only one where things get real interesting is Section 2, because there's no clear frontrunner there. They've all kind of beat each other. I think Eau Claire North, they got the number 1 seed and they earned it, but everybody else in that section is kind of just jumbled up and messed around. But other than that, I think the boys' side is pretty well chalk. It was kind of a no-brainer.
I don't know if it was, well, not entirely. No, there's always going to be, questions. We're always paying close attention to Section 3, where you've got, 3 of our top 10 teams in there, and usually you think there's not a whole lot of difference between being the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed, because you have home ice for 2 games, and if you win that, the sectional final is already at a predetermined location, which could be, neutral location, but you have home ice. But in Section 3, the number 1 seed, I'm not going to say as a cakewalk. I want to, denigrate DC Everest or Wisconsin Rapids, the number 4 and 5 seed, or anybody else. I mean, yes, they could win a game, but the number 1 seed, in this case, Wausau West, has a couple of easier games before having to meet, if things go by seed, the winner of Spash versus Northland Pines. So of those top 3 teams, Spash and Northland Pines each have to win 2, beat 2 top 10 teams to go to state. West only has to beat the remainder of one of those 2. You look at our seeding, our ranking, and our top 10, and most of those polls have, give Pines an edge over Wausau West. You look at the actual games that they played just within the section, Wausau West has not lost to anybody in the section. They did beat, Northland Pines, head to head. So, what do coaches pay more attention to? I think probably the number 1 thing that, less on the boys' side, the number 1 thing they pay attention to is head to head competition. So I think, any chance that Pines had of, claiming the top seed, would be, BJ Brandt would just, drop that trump card down there. We played you, we won.
And I think on the boys' side, I think head-to-head always gets first billing unless you end up in a rock, paper, scissors situation. And we see it with some of the complaints about the current boys' top 10. West lost to USM, Pines beat USM, Pines lost to West. You can't rank those 3 teams in a top 10 based on head-to-head. You have to take other factors into account, because head-to-head, they're playing rock, paper, scissors with each other. In Section 3, you don't currently have that. West beat both Pines and Spash. Pines beat Spash. So those three teams are, other than those games against each other, Pines and Spash are also undefeated in the section, except for Wausau West and Spash and Pines. So that one just kind of puts itself together pretty easily because you don't have that rock, paper, scissors situation.
And I think that one of the most important games all the way through here, boys and girls side both, is the number 5 versus the number 4. Number 4 gets the home game. Number 5 has to travel. And I haven't really looked at it closely, but I mean, there are times when there could be a little bit of mixing around where the home team gets definitely the benefit, and the visiting team, who probably should have been the home team, maybe comes out on the short end of the stick. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, a 4 and 5, in most cases, you might be able to argue the 5 should be the 4, but it's really a toss-up, and it's going to come down to, you could get, even if you just took the coaches out of the situation and you got 15 people in the room and argued about 4 and 5, the vote's probably going to be 8-7, one over the other. So you can say maybe the 5 should have been, but in most cases it's not clear that the 5 should have been the 4, and they lose out on that home game. Those rankings are almost always a toss-up.
Okay, so we have coaches are involved in this, but they use the Mitch Hawker's rankings. They use Jeff Rashan's rankings, USHSHO, and the STAC rankings. I mean, they go into the room with printouts of all of this, plus what they do head-to-head, common opponents, whatever. At what point, if you want to try to make this more perfect, let's say, and I'm probably going to get denigrated for saying this, but do you take the coaches out of the equation? I mean, do you do that? Can you do that? Should you do that?
Well, the WIAA is moving to computerized rankings for the football playoffs next year. Their first experiment with that. I know that the RPI is used to seed the NCAA basketball tournament every year, and the hockey tournament for the teams that didn't win their conference outright is usually based on a computerized ranking of some sort informing the decision. So you could move to that, but I don't know that the results would be significantly different.
Yeah, and I think coaches who think they will benefit, who are ranked higher in one of the computerized rankings, they will take that information in there. But coaches who are, who will benefit, by ending up stronger in their conference, if their conference is heavy in their sectional, they'll use that information. Of course, they'll always use head-to-head. So, coaches will bring whatever information they think will give them an edge.
Okay. Del, did you have anything on that, or they pretty much?
The thing is, one of the things is I'm going to look at a conference here, and I'm actually going to take the girls sectional one, and we look at this one, and Eau Claire, the ECA Stars got the number 1 seed. They're ranked fairly high in probably like 4 or so in our top 10. The number 2 seed is Hudson. Hudson beat the Stars both times they met them. And I think it was like 4-1. I have the scores here. The first time they played was at Hobbs, and Hudson won that game 4-1. The second time was at Hudson, and Hudson won that game 3-1. But the Stars end up going to getting the first number 1 seed. Now, I don't know I didn't look to see who won the conference, but I think that's one thing that also, when the coaches get together, that comes into play. And one of the things one of the places I'll look at is I'll go to section 4 of the boys. Number 1 seed is Onalaska. Onalaska won their conference, and the number 2 seed is RWD, who Onalaska beaten head to head. Number 3 seed is Toma. Toma Sparta is your number 3 seed. They played RWD, and their only meeting was a 2-2 tie. But I believe one of the things that helped lead RWD to get the number 2 seed is they went on to win their conference title. And so, I think those are things that come into play also when they look at their seeds. That they win their conference, and it's one of the things that the coaches use towards their arguments. And I think we all realize, that there is no perfect system to this. And, even if you go by the rankings, you're still going to end up with disagreements on it. And, I guess to me, it's kind of one of the things that, leads to more things to talk about and look forward to, as the playoffs start. Because, as a coach, you're going into your team saying, okay, you think that, we didn't get what we deserved in this seeding, okay, let's go prove it on the ice.
Well, that gets us to, let's go back to section 1 on the girls and bring back Bill's rock, paper, scissors thing. You talked about Hudson, Eau Claire getting the top seed. Well, Hudson beat them. You look at Hudson's schedule, and they got beat by St. Croix Valley Fusion. Okay, so now and tied them. So now you have Hudson and Eau Claire and St. Croix Valley Fusion playing rock, paper, scissors, and the odd team out of that equation is the Western Wisconsin Stars, because they lost twice to Eau Claire, they beat and tied the St. Croix Valley Fusion, but they didn't play Hudson. And the fact that they didn't play Hudson, and Hudson has that whole rock, paper, scissors thing going on with the other two, the Western Wisconsin Stars can't jump into that mix with them, so they end up higher in our coaches poll and our computer rankings, but with the number 4 seed out of it. Probably because they didn't play Hudson.
And, I think from what I had heard was that
must have been a cutthroat coaches meeting.
Well, they actually did play Hudson.
Did they?
Yeah, the Stars played Hudson back on November 29th and beat them 6-1.
How did they end up at the 4 seed?
What I think they went into the meeting to do, from what I understand, is compete with the Fusion, trying to get the number 3 spot at the very least. They went 1-0-1 against the Fusion, which you would think would put them ahead, but I don't know all the common opponents, how that all worked out. But, it just seems to me like, based on where Western Wisconsin finished in the stack and the My Hockey or the USHSHO rankings, they kind of got the short end of the stick on this deal. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I thought they'd be battling for 1 or 2, and they end up at 4.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong. We don't have any argument against any of the other coaches. St. Croix Valley Fusion, Matt Cranston, he's a great guy. He's a good friend of ours. He's in there battling for the highest spot he can get. Maybe the fact that Western Wisconsin was a little bit, their coaches have less experience than Matt does and stuff, and that's probably got something to do with it too. But I think my whole thing is there any way that we can make this system better? And does it take computer rankings only? A little mix of both, and
no.
How do we make it happen?
No, you can't make it better. if you could make it perfect, the games wouldn't be necessary on the ice. You can make it less subjective and leave it to a computer ranking, but that's not necessarily better. We've all seen the computer ranking show a team higher than another when we all know they shouldn't be, and then when those two teams meet, the one we know should win wins. Just because sometimes that's the way the schedules and whatever shake out for the computer ranking. So the computer ranking could possibly make it more fair and could take coach biases out of it when it comes to the meeting, but it doesn't necessarily make it any better. Better is a hard thing to come by. That's why, when they moved from college football ending with just a poll, they moved to the BCS, and everybody hated the BCS. The BCS was better than a poll, but it still wasn't right. Now they've moved to a playoffs, which is better than the BCS was. Eventually, maybe they will move to the playoff they should actually have, which is, I believe, the 7 major conference champions and then one add-in to actually play an 8-team tournament for the college football championship. That would be best. But better is a subjective thing that you're not really going to get to, and they still have to play the games on the ice anyway. So you don't want to see a team get hosed. And I think Western Wisconsin, in my eyes, should have been the 2 seed here, but just making it the computer and getting them where they should be does not necessarily make it better. It makes it better for them this year, but it doesn't necessarily help anybody else down the road, just because the computers aren't infallible either.
Well,
No, and we're talking about one section out of 12. I mean, granted, we knew this was the most competitive section before it came out. And yes, when you have the coaches, I mean, the way it works is each coach submits their initial seeding suggestion, and then the coaches can challenge the team ahead of them. And then they present their case, and then the coaches vote on that challenge. And yes, when you have somebody like I was talking with the Antigo coach, Matt Borneman, his first year in there, they were trying to get the number 1 seed. But he's brand new to this whole process, and Pete Susans from Wausau West also wanted the number 1 seed, and they got it. Pete Susans did because, experience and, coaches and the respect the other coaches have for that coach, a lot of them don't want to piss off another coach, so there's more. I mean, there's more than just the teams involved. There's a lot involved personality-wise with the coaches and stuff. So yes, something a little more objective than coaches staring each other down in a blinking contest might be better.
Well, and the one other thing that I'm sure these coaches use when they're doing their discussions is, well, yes, we lost to this team, but at the time we played this team, we were short this player and this player. When they're short, a couple of their better players and stuff, and it's things that they point out. And I think that we all basically agree, it is what it is, and it's going to be proven on the ice, and that's to make it to the state and win the state championship. You've got to win whoever you're facing on the ice. And so that's what it's going to boil down to this year. And if you want to use the way the seedings come out as an incentive, then use it that way. But you can. Otherwise, you're going to tell your players, and we've all heard coaches say it to their players. We can't cry over what we've got dealt. We have to deal with it and go out there and prove ourselves. And that's where all these teams are at right now.
I mean, and girls section 1 is also the same sectional where people are saying, well, how is it fair that 4 of the top 7 or 8 teams in the state are all in the one section? Well, that's just the way geography works out. Northland Pines, Wausau West, and Spash, I believe, are 1, 3, and 5 in the boys' top 10 right now. They're all in the same section. That's not any less fair than than all those girls teams playing in the one section. And ultimately, you still have to beat those teams.
Well, we look at the boys side quite often. We look at boys sectional 1, boys sectional 2, and there's a lot of times that you see anywhere from 4 to 5 of the teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the state are end up being in taking up 2 of your sectionals, and you're like, it's hard to see some of your better teams end up staying home and not making it to state. But that's one thing that's going to be interesting. Once we do make it to state this year, what are we seeing this year? We're actually seeing the teams that make it there get seeded as to where, instead of seeing maybe the top 2 teams being in sectionals that have to meet each other right off the bat at state this year. We're fortunate enough that they had decided this year they're going to start the seeding there. And that's going to be interesting to see and talk about and hear how everybody feels about that once those are announced, once we get that far.
And on the other side, as I was plugging in all the teams and the brackets, I was kind of surprised at just how quickly some teams have fallen on hard times. Like it seems like just a couple of years ago that Appleton was a dynasty in the making. We saw them at the state tournament, and I looked and I plug in they're a number 9 seed. Wanakee was challenging for spots just a couple of years ago, and you put them in as a number 7 seed. I mean, Kenosha's had a good program. I don't know if they've challenged for a state tournament. Putting them in at a number 11 seed, the last seed in their sectional. I mean, these teams at Cedarburg. Wasn't Cedarburg at the state tournament a couple years ago?
Yes, they had their goalie, and their goalie actually won our goal.
They're the number 11 out of 11 in their section.
They were probably there about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. So
you mentioned.
Things change for sure.
You mentioned Appleton United. They looked like a dynasty in the making. Not only they're a 9 seed this year, they lost their girls team.
They just can't find them anymore.
They're part of the Fox City Stars now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even have their girls team anymore. So something in Appleton youth hockey has taken at least a blip for a couple of years there, about 8 years ago.
Yeah, okay. I think the common theme is paper mills. That happened in Rapids. That happens in the Fox Valley. You lose your paper mills. You lose people that have those high-paying jobs, and all of a sudden those kids that were able to play and afford hockey, youth-level hockey and high school hockey, can't do it anymore. And, I mean, it sounds like, it's kind of not that big of a deal, but, it's part of the deal. So there's all these things that kind of come around to knock down programs, and before you know it, your good programs are kind of not that good, and your average programs don't even exist anymore. So for whatever reason, definitely sucks. But okay, so I think we did a good job on the sectional seeding. Got a chance to talk about what was right, what's wrong, and how it is. So from there, let's move on to the top 10, and that would be Webb Junior's milieu. Webb, what do you got for us?
Sure thing. The boys' top 4 stays the same. Northland Pines, USM, Wausau West, and Superior. 5 and 6 swap from last week. This week Pines is 5th and Verona is 6th. 7th and 8th swap from last week. This week Onalaska is 7th and Sun Prairie is 8th. Nina Hortonville Menasha is still 9th and Eau Claire North is still 10th. Honorable mention for the boys are Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire Memorial, Hudson, Madison West, and Notre Dame. Did I say Eau Claire North or Eau Claire Memorial for number 10? I meant North. I don't know if I actually said North. got a bad habit.
Well, check the replay.
Yeah, check the replay. I got a bad habit of saying Eau Claire Memorial just because of, like the 15 years of stunning success. On the girls' side, the top 8 are the same as last week. The Warbirds Alliance is 1, Fox City Stars 2, Central Wisconsin Storm are 3, Eau Claire Area Stars are 4th, Western Wisconsin Stars are 5th, St. Croix Valley Fusion is 6th, Hudson Raiders are 7th, USM Wildcats are 8th, the Rock County Fury move into the 9th spot, and the Hayward Co-op Hurricanes move into honorable mention. Honorable mention for the girls are the Cap City Cougars and the Bay Area Ice Bears. Not a lot of movement in the top 10 this week.
No, and I think that has probably a lot to do with the lack of games that were played because of the weather. You look at the boys' side and the top 4 didn't move, and then like the next 4 flip-flopped, and then girls' side, the top 8 didn't do anything, and then the last couple moved around a little bit. So I'm sure the weather had something to do with it. It's a lot easier when you're only playing one game, and have the chance to get upset or whatever.
There are several really good boys games on Thursday this week. Hudson and Eau Claire Memorial play, Northland Pines and Superior play, Stevens Point and Wausau West play, and Chippewa Falls and Eau Claire North play. So Thursday, there are 4 games between top 10 honorable mention opponents head to head. So, depending on which side wins, we should see some movement next week.
Burglar, what do you got for us?
Did I have anything?
I don't know. I thought you had something.
I did cut you off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I forgot. But yeah, that was so long ago I forgot what it was.
And on Tuesday this week, Eau Claire North and Eau Claire Memorial play, and Nina Hortonville Menasha and Stevens Point play. So Stevens Point, Eau Claire North, and Eau Claire Memorial all have 2 games against top 10 opponents this week. So there's a lot of potential for movement this week.
All right, so that's what we like to see, and that's a good thing for those teams. When it comes down to playoff time, they have an opportunity to match up with some better opponents to see where they're sitting at, and we'll see how that works out. So it should be a good week this week, and definitely a good week next week. Our upcoming games of the week on the boys' side will be Thursday, Spash at Wausau West, and this is going to be for the Wisconsin Valley Conference title. And I believe, and you'll have to correct me on this, either Webb Jr. or Burglar will be attending this game. Guys, what can you tell me about it?
Well, we'll probably both be there.
We may even bring in a third.
Wow. Are you going to be sitting in the penalty box, or are you going to be sitting in the stands?
Well, there'll be a person with a camera, not in the penalty box. Technically, it's like in between the penalty box and the visiting players bench.
I sat in the stands for 1 period at the Great Northern Conference tournament, and I'm not doing that again. My rant
wouldn't have anything to do with parents, would it?
My rant about parents a couple weeks ago was not nearly forceful enough. I just want to sit in the stands with a bullhorn. When they shout, "That's interference," I just want to get the bullhorn out and go, "No, he had the puck." Or, "That's hooking." No, they were just skating next to each other. Oh my God.
He trapped him.
No, he just fell down.
Alrighty, guys. I think that whoever's taking pictures should go up to the little loft above the
that's too high.
Scores table.
It's too high, and it's in the middle of the rink.
It's too high, and you're cramped. I was up there for 1 game, and I thought it would be all good, but it's not all good.
No.
So
I've done game. I tried doing a game in Antigo. There's a ledge next to the scorer's booth, and it's an odd angle to shoot at. The only place it really works is, for some reason, it works in Eau Claire at Hobbs. I think it's because it's a little farther back off of the boards that you can get a better angle with it. It doesn't just look like you're looking down on top of them.
I think it works good at Hobbs for sure. That was, if you read my article from a few weeks ago about, you should read that, about rinks and how they are for media. I think Hobbs was ranked number one. Spash over at KB Willett is ranked in the top 2 or 3. And what was the other one? Shoot, I can't remember, but whatever. Yeah, definitely. We like to cover games at rinks where you get good shots, you get, good angles on whatever you're doing, and we hope that it works out. So at Marathon Park, you're kind of shooting either over the top of the glass from the top of the stands, or you're somewhere down in the penalty box or player's bench area and just trying to get shots from down there. So, you'll be right at player level, but, you got to watch out for flying pucks too, definitely, for sure. So that's the boys' game of the week, Spash and Wausau West at Marathon Park. The girls' upcoming game of the week is going to be Friday, and will participate the Wisconsin Valley Union at the Rock County Fury. And that should be a good game in the southern part of the state, and I believe...
We think there's going to be a Hobbit at that game for us.
There should be a Hobbit sighting.
Okay, and I'm not even sure where that game's at, if that's going to be in Beloit or if that's it's somewhere in Wisconsin. It'll be Janesville, it'll be Beloit, or it'll be at the Slice, one of the 3. We're not exactly sure where. But
hold on, and I'll let you know.
Our guy will be there to cover it, as long as he doesn't get lost somewhere in Hobbit land, I guess.
The game will be at the Janesville Ice Skating Center at 7 p.m.
All right, and that's on Friday night.
Friday evening.
Wisconsin Valley Union at Rock County Fury should be a good game. We got Pistol Cowden playing goalie for Wisconsin Valley Union, and Rock County Fury has got a pretty decent team, so should be a close matchup, and that's something that we are looking forward to. Okay, so let's move to final thoughts, and I'm going to start, and if anybody else has anything else after that, they can finish up. But my final thought, and for the final time this year, is the Hobey Baker Character Award, and I was told by Jim Hayes, the Hobey Baker character guy that basically kind of runs this thing for the program, and he said that he's going to give it one more week, or probably not a week, but like 4 or 5 days. And at this point, we're good into, I think, Friday, I believe, is the deadline. And as of right now, we're looking at boys teams have 51 of 84 teams have nominated a player, which is 60%. And on the girls' side, it's 14 of 28 for 50%. And I know we've talked about this a lot, or I have actually, looking to try to get 70%. And, it's a great thing for a senior player who's deserving of this. Make sure to nominate your kids, and you got a few days to do it. It's a big deal. It looks great on their college resume. Hobey Baker Character Award. People that don't even know anything about hockey know something that a Hobey Baker Character Award means something. So this is a big deal for your kids. So don't think that it's not. Don't be lazy. Don't say, I don't have enough time. Get out there, nominate your kid. you've gotten the emails from Jim Hayes probably 7-8 times this year. If you, for some reason, didn't get it, send an email to me, trasherdog@charter.net, and I'll make sure I get it to Jim. But you have a good player, a deserving senior player. They need to get this award on their resume. You need to nominate them. It's a great thing. Right now we're at, 60 and 70% or whatever the heck it is, 60 and 50%. And that's not enough. No reason we can't get more than that, way more than that. So take this time over the next few days, nominate your deserving players, and make everybody happy. It's a worthwhile award, and it's something that you really need to do for your kids. Okay, my rant is over, and I think that's all I got, guys.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to follow up on that. If you watched the Super Bowl pregame show, I think it was actually in just the pregame show, not the pregame or the pregame show, but the one that was just before the football, within an hour of the football game itself. They did I believe the NFL calls it the Walter Payton Humanitarian Award. All 32 teams had a player represented out there. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that, but for high school hockey. Every team should have a player in that field.
Burglar.
That's all.
Well said. That I think you nailed it 100%. This is a great award, and there's no reason, coaches, boys and girls side, and I believe we have like 112 teams between boys and girls. There's no reason, absolutely zero, that we can't have 112 nominees for this award. Obie Baker Character Award, it's a big deal. I mean, needs to be done. So get it done. You got like 4 more days. So get your nominations into Jim Hayes at jhayes@acosta.com. Or if you got problems getting it to there, send it to trasherdog@charter.net. I will pass it along to Jim. A big deal, a great deal. It's a huge deal for kids on your team, especially if they deserve it. So, guys, I think that's all I got for tonight. How about you? Anything else you need to add?
Not here.
Nothing for me.
Alrighty then. So for Bill Berg Sr., Del Scanlon, Bill Jr., and myself, Trasher, in Port Edwards, Wisconsin, easy for me to say. Good night, and we hope you enjoyed this week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. Take care and have a good evening.